our President's vision is for all children to read with comprehension in grade 4. Now, if you're in grade 4, typically you're 9 to 10 years old. That means 9 to 10 years to develop reading comprehension. 9 to 10 years. There's a long period. There are many, many years running up to a skill that is necessary to write tests and exams with confidence and study skills. And it's for that reason that we've had these conversations to organize the environment. We've had these rules put into place that tells you when, what must be done by whom, by what time, how must it be done, and why. And those are the fundamental questions that lead to study skills. So when we play these games during this program, well, it looks like games. They're not games, it's learning, but on a concrete level, age appropriate or skill appropriate for the skills level of the child that you are working with at the moment. So if we want to get our children to be read with comprehension when they're in grade 4, we need to look at those other building blocks. So we've got language, conversation, we've got listening skills, we've got vocabulary, we've got it that you need to develop language skills, we've got it that you need to develop some form of order, because in order, if you know who does what, when, where, it gives you a sense of direction and sequence. Where must I put it? Where must I find it? What must I do first? What must I do second? What must I do third? And those things, vocabulary, language skills, a sense of direction and sequence, are fundamental skills for reading. So before we can read with ease, those skills need to be in place. Now, but the thing is, there's something before that. There's something prior to our ability to develop all of these conversational skills and the sense of sequence and direction. And that is sensory development. You know, when you sit and you're busy working or you're watching TV and you go, what's that? And you run to the kitchen, and what do you find? You've burned the food. Okay, what was that? So your nose was telling you you need to go over into action. Okay, and maybe when you came back to sit down after you've rescued what was rescuable, it's a new word, and as you sit down, somebody put something on your seat and you didn't notice it. And as you sit down, you think, what's this? Get up, because you felt there was something that wasn't there before. So you see, sensory input. Sensory input, if I use my arms like this arm represents sensory input, this arm represents motor output. This is the basis of all behavior. Behavior is where the plant is behavior. Your child's behavior, appropriate or inappropriate, is the product of this entire process. So senses talk to your brain. The brain tells the muscles how to respond. The muscles respond, and you see a child's behavior. So behavior is an output. It is a product. And if the behavior is inappropriate, somewhere along the line, says neuroscience, neuroscience teaches us, neuroscience is not that very far-fetched thing. It's very simple. It's what is the role of the physical body and the physical brain in the entire learning process. Learning is not this abstract thing up here. It's neuroscience is showing us that the physical body has a huge role to play in the learning process. And it is, in a nutshell, it's how does your senses talk to your brain, and how does your brain talk to your muscles, and are they talking to each other, or are there shorts? You know, like there's a short somewhere, and the circuit drops, and there's no more lights and no more TV and no more knocks in your house. It happens like that in our body as well, because your nervous system, your brain, works on two things: chemistry and neurology, electricity. Chemistry and electricity. Okay, so we need to get this process to work extremely well. So senses feed information into the brain, and the brain tells the muscles how to respond, and that results in behavior, and that behavioral output tells you how well this whole process is working. So the brain part is not that simple. There's a survival brain, it's in and out. That child will not stop screaming. And you hear that input, and without thinking what happens, you want to yell or throw something or do something rather irresponsible just to get rid of some of the frustration. This is called the survival part of the brain. It's not the pretty part of the brain. It's the part of the brain where you perceive and you act without thought. There's a short circuit, okay? When you perceive and you pause over here on the heart or the emotions will either intensify this process, it normally intensifies the process that either sends information up to the thinking part of the brain, or if it's just been too much, immediately over into action, and there's an emotional response, but it's still a motor output. And then ideally, here comes the learning process. Information comes in through your senses. It runs through the heart, and the heart says, this is interesting. I find this fascinating. Let me pay attention. And then information goes to the thinking part of the brain, and that's where you find language and cognition. And then information comes back through the emotional part of the brain that evaluates the learning experience and says, is this important enough to remember? And if it is, the person is automatically motivated to go over into action. This is neuroscience in a nutshell. And this is the process and the approach that we are following with this reading program. So just to clarify, there are 3 layers to the brain. There's the survival layer. On top of that is the emotional layer, and on top of that is the thinking part of the brain. So in a way, let me do it in reverse. Thinking brain, emotional brain, survival brain is right down at the bottom. So when we approach reading, as I've said on numerous occasions, the symbols, the alphabet, numbers, all of those symbols, that's the end of the reading process. So if I read a book with my child and I see a picture of carrots, for example, this is not carrots. This is second best. This is a picture symbol of the real McCoy. So when we teach and when we cook during these days, specifically, involve your children with cooking. Let them peel, let them smell, let them taste while they're busy, and then when they look at a picture of carrots in a book, all of a sudden that's not a picture in a book. It's that previous experience when we all cook together, and that's what it looks like. Now that picture has come alive, and when you then get to the word, the symbols of that experience that was turned into a picture, and then, so if I can just quickly do this, my book broke, so I can just turn it back. So that's the process. The real thing, a picture symbol, and then the word. If you follow this recipe, your child will fall in love with reading. When it comes to numbers, it's the same thing. So this, wonderful, is number 2. Yes, but that's over here. Before number 2 is a dice with a number 2. But before that is counting something very real, like I think we need 2 carrots, and I think you need to grate 2 carrots for the soup. Are you with me? Concrete object or conversation about a concrete experience, turn it into a picture symbol, and then turn it into the real symbol. Reading made simple. So we spoke about recycling and all of that stuff. And while you're so busy with the carrots, you can just as well teach your child, young and old, to work responsibly with a knife and chop off the top of the vegetables that you use, and put those tops upside down in a little bit of water. This is a different form of reading because they can observe over time how these vegetables are going to sprout. Then you can start your own veggie garden. It is age-appropriate, concrete reading before we get to the symbols of reading.